Welcome back to the Manage to Win podcast. I'm your host, David Russell. Today's episode is sponsored by Habitly.com, where you can learn the habits of highly successful people. What does that mean? You will be able to go farther in business because you'll develop stronger business relationships. You will save time because you'll start prioritizing better and managing your time more effectively. You'll avoid conflict or resolve it. Tons of things on Habitly.com that you can learn to achieve your dreams. Check it out, 7 days free. Can't go wrong. Today's episode is with Andrew Wolgemuth. Now, he is a co-founder of Wove. What they do is custom jewelry. Why would I talk about custom jewelry on this show? The processes they're following are fascinating, things for everybody to learn from. Let's dive in. Andrew, welcome to the show. It sounds like you're doing some unique things in your organization. Please introduce yourself to the audience, and let's dive into learning from you.
Absolutely, David. Excited to be here. Share a little bit about my entrepreneurship journey and about Wove, the company that we're building. So, I guess I'll start off with a brief background. I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Actually, my entrepreneurship journey started in a little bit more of a unique way than most. I graduated from West Point and served in the Ranger Regiment in the Army, really never intending to kind of find myself in jewelry or entrepreneurship. Was in a small training accident while serving in the Ranger Regiment where I broke my neck, and unfortunately kind of led me down this path of transition where it was kind of at a point of, where do I go next? And so for a lot of veterans, you look to the MBA programs, you start looking to graduate degrees. And I came from a family of jewelry entrepreneurs. So my family started a jewelry company when I was a baby. It was a typical brick and mortar jewelry store. And while I was serving in the Army, had the opportunity to help a lot of my friends that were deployed overseas build engagement rings. And kind of through that experience is what led me down the entrepreneurship journey of starting Wove, which is we build custom engagement rings for couples. We send them an exact replica of their design in 7 days. And if they like that, we build them the real thing. So that's kind of like a last 10 years crash course on me. But yeah, excited to share, David.
Well, thank you for serving. I have a nephew who is currently a Ranger serving in Georgia. And like yourself in a training exercise, his parachute didn't open.
Oh, wow.
And,
okay.
Finally got his reserve chute open at the last second because that was a problem too, and shattered his ankle. And he was able to heal and is still in the Rangers and enjoying it. But thank you for serving. I think as far as us general population, we think, when there's a war or something, the biggest danger is you guys get hurt there, but you train so much that's real. There's so much danger, you've got on kind of a regular basis. I wouldn't say daily when you're training, but
sure.
Thank you so much.
It's so true. Well, thank you. And it is so true. I think there's like so many parallels between my time in the Army and in the Ranger Regiment specifically that I lean on all the time with entrepreneurship. It's not like an unlikely path, or it is an unlikely path there. But that's fascinating hearing about your nephew, or your nephew, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like, glad to hear that he's okay. I've had a couple mishaps with parachutes, nothing that serious, but that's a scary event. So glad to hear he's all right.
Yeah. Actually, thinking about it, it might have been that jump or another jump that was also a training jump, but he lost one of the guys on his team because there was a parachute that got twisted up. They jumped. They did the test jump when it should not have been done. The wind was too high. But for whatever reason, somebody made the decision that they're to jump, and one guy died in the training jump. Yeah. So it's very dangerous. Anyway, let's go with this Wove thing. So it sounds like you're doing some unique things. Now, you came from the background of jewelry, although it's kind of, I'm sure you can sense it. It's kind of odd. You got the rough, Ranger dude, and then he's going to go make jewelry. So, but it sounds like kind of counterintuitive, but this concept that you came up with is quite different from a brick and mortar jewelry store. So how did you guys come up with that? How did you test that?
Yeah, it's very different. I think we are uniquely positioned to solve this problem. I had a unique opportunity when getting out of the Army to do an entrepreneurship crash course through Stanford GSB's Ignite program, where basically it's a 1-month program. You get access to Stanford professors, amazing peers, and you get to start this venture idea. And one of the questions that was posed to me was, as far as defensibility, what keeps two Stanford undergrads from building your company in their dorm room? And I think because of my background in the industry, because of in some sense, my military background, which is very people focused and very process driven, I think allowed us to create systems that allow us to do customization at scale. But as far as the idea of how this got generated, I was actually stationed out in Washington at Fort Lewis. I was in 2nd Ranger Battalion at the time, and I was building an engagement ring for my now wife, Sarah. And my family's business is in Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. So obviously, across the country, I was working with my parents to design an engagement ring. They were generous enough to build this ring for me at cost. And they had sent me photos and videos of it. But when I got the ring, I recognized that this is different than what I was hoping for. And it kind of got me thinking, how do couples buy engagement rings online in this day and age with full certainty that what they're getting is exactly what they want? It's like, it is one of the most sentimental, important purchases that a couple will make in their lifetime, not to mention one of the most expensive. And it's not something you want to get wrong. So really led us down this path of creating a business model that I would say is very similar. The best way to understand it is we're the Warby Parker of engagement rings. We design the ring with you. We send you an exact replica in 7 days. It feels indistinguishable from the final ring. You probably wouldn't be able to tell it apart. And it allows them to see with full certainty that what they're getting is exactly what they want. And so our progression to product market fit is really fascinating because we started this after my experience by sending replica rings overseas to Rangers that were deployed that wanted to buy an engagement ring while they were in Afghanistan so that when they stepped off the plane back in the US, they could drop to a knee and propose. And so not many people want to send a $10,000 engagement ring overseas. And so we started this replica process to allow us to, those were our earliest adopters, were a bunch of my buddies deployed to Afghanistan, which is a really special part of our story.
Yeah. Now, so how do you deal with, you're coming up with these replicas and what are they made of and how are they, you're saying it's exactly like what it's going to look like, feel like, but it's not the real thing. So, I mean, what is that? They're not paper mache. It doesn't sound like they're 3D printing. So how exactly does that work?
So it's a great question. The production process is exactly the same as a final ring, but we substitute non-precious metals such as brass and some zinc. And basically, it's very inexpensive. Those metals are very cheap. We substitute that for the gold, and then we substitute the diamonds with imitation gemstones that are typically pennies. So really, that's the heaviest, that's where we find the value in this replica ring experience. And that's what allows us to make it look so real. The other thing that I'll add, though, is this really only became possible in the last couple of years because of how technology has advanced around 3D printing. Really, before you had to hand carve these wax rings that you would then cast in brass. And now we're able to 3D print up to 300 different rings at a time. So I think it's kind of the culmination of, being the right time and being the right people to make this product. And I think, we got lucky as well.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding, I shouldn't make any assumption. So I decide I want to do this. Am I choosing a design? And normally I don't go into the specific business with a guest, but I just think as an entrepreneur, you got to think about these different pieces to the puzzle. So I'm somebody that's interested. Am I looking at I can choose from these set designs like a Warby Parker that you suggested, or is this something where I can submit a design or talk to somebody about a design?
So it's both. We allow you to submit inspiration photos and we can build essentially exactly what you submit. or we can start from scratch with you and design the ring with you based on your preferences. I think one of the things that's super important for any entrepreneur, right, is discovering what are your customers' pain points and what is the customer journey. And so for us, we spent, lots of time looking at how do people buy engagement rings today? What are their specific pain points? And how can we solve those pain points in an innovative way? And what we found was that people either want something that is completely customizable. And if you go to a jewelry store today and you want something custom, it's a 6 to 8 week wait with money down. Or we found that, clients are willing to buy off the shelf, but they're very price sensitive. And so we offer the ability for clients to design custom rings completely from scratch. So, I think allowing ourselves to understand that customer journey is really what allowed us to discover the pain points and then propose a solution. But our process has evolved numerous times, even in the last 6 months, I would say.
Oh, I would think it would never stop. Now, big question: are all the rings that you sell made in the U.S.?
They are. So we have a shop here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We build everything start to finish from scratch. We design it, we 3D print it, cast it, polish it, set it, which allows us to get our process, our production time down to about 7 days per ring, which is lightning fast in the industry.
All right, you're my guy. I love made in the USA. I'm glad you're there. Can be confident of the quality and that type of thing. I think it's wonderful. So I think it's great. Now, let me raise some issues. So thinking as a businessman, so you have a client and they come in and they're like, okay, I want to do this custom design. Your people spend time talking to them, maybe help with the design, build the thing. And then the person says, I changed my mind, not doing it. Do you eat that cost, or is there a design fee that you charge?
So what we ask, it's a great question, because initially we did not charge, and we ended up finding out in a painful way that the end user has to have some level of buy-in in this process. And so what we do is we ask for $150 up front that will come off the final price of the ring. So if you drop out throughout the process, that is fine. It's completely up to you. We'll keep that deposit. But if you go through the whole process, get the replica and get the final ring, that will come off the final price of the ring. So, but yeah, that was an early on pain point that we discovered is, we're having people come to us, they get the replica ring and then they run. And we aren't trying to be the replica ring company. We want to be the lifetime jeweler for our couples. So yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, I don't want to cause trouble, but I think the 150 sounds very reasonable. You might even be able to bump that to 250. So it's here I've got somebody I'm really working with. If I want to make a commitment, make a commitment. The 150, I guess, is so low that it's kind of a no-brainer if you want made in the USA and then you want a little more say. I really like it. So, it sounds good. It also sounds good for upgrades. So,
absolutely. We have a lot of couples that come to us that got their engagement ring, a decade ago. And they maybe they got married at 21. They didn't have the money to get, their dream ring at that moment in life, and they go for an upgrade ring. So that's something we do a lot of is working with couples to take a sentimental piece and either augment it or change it while also kind of being able to maintain like the original aspects of the ring, which is cool.
So I don't know whether you can talk about it, but what is the biggest mistake you guys made?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've made a lot of mistakes.
Join the club. It's okay.
Yeah, and we're still making mistakes. The biggest mistake that we've made, so very early on, we thought that the service we were going to provide to our customers was allowing them to submit a photo and we would build that ring. Essentially, what we found is 90% of couples discover what ring they want on Instagram. And then the problem becomes for them is, well, how do I find this ring? Because a lot of the rings you see on Instagram aren't actually coming tagged from a store. They're like creations that don't necessarily, it's not always as easy as see a ring and buy. So we were getting a lot of people sending us pictures from Instagram, essentially saying, "Can you build this?" And our idea was, "Hey, submit a photo. We'll build you the exact ring." And what we ran into, like within the first 2 months, is essentially companies threatening to sue us for copyright infringement on their designs, which was obviously a very scary time as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
When you're the little guy and you have a major jewelry company threatening to file legal action when we didn't even know we were copying their ring. So we have changed some things. Like that was a very early on mistake that we made, and now we never copy a ring. We have inspiration photos that clients bring to us, but we take our own creative liberties in creating that piece for them. So that was definitely a scary moment in like the first 6 months of us doing business that made us kind of stop and think for a second.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird thing. So on how you get around that, but I can see how that would be very scary. So how do you change that? So if someone's, you can be confident that if someone's not telling you that it's, whether it's a major manufacturer, it's just an artist that has a good lawyer, or an expensive lawyer, or an angry, threatening lawyer. How do you change it so you make certain you're safe?
So the good thing is that to get, for legal action to be filed against you for something as creative and artistic as an engagement ring, there has to be a lot of evidence that you copied that exact ring. And so there are actually very, very few jewelry brands that actually have copyrighted pieces. Most companies don't even bother because it's extremely difficult to essentially get enough evidence to prove that. So we essentially have literally a sheet up in our design studio that shows certain attributes of certain rings that cannot be copied. And it's a short list. It's probably 30 different rings that have certain attributes that we kind of shy away from. But that was a way of protecting ourselves. And then I think even things like language on the site are extremely important. Not saying something like submit a photo and we'll copy it, which it sounds extraordinarily obvious, but using words like inspiration or thought, or like thought boards, those types of things, instead of, I think language is very important as a way to protect yourself as well.
Well, the other thing it seems like you'd run into is that there are so many similarities between rings, and am I wrong, but there's probably like millions of designs already out there.
It's so true. And it's funny because, we're in this age where you've probably heard the term the creator economy, where, everyone wants something different. They want something personalized. They want to have their name on it. And it's interesting because in jewelry, that still exists, but 90% of people want some variation of about 20 different rings. And so for us, we want to give this feeling of customization and personalization that is really important to a lot of people. But at the same time, there are so many aspects of rings that are so similar. I think that kind of plays into why it is really difficult for, a big jewelry company to come after someone like us for accidentally or potentially copying a ring design.
So I want to do a call out to the audience here. We're talking a lot about rings. We're talking a lot about Andrew's business, but this also applies in your business because so many of us are offering services or products that some people would view as commodities. And we have to understand how to differentiate ourselves. So, Andrew, you've got Made in the USA, which I think is awesome. And then you're doing the customization and this. It sounds like the way you're differentiating also is the process, the way you're doing the replica that's so close to the real thing. And you have an amazingly quick turnaround to get to a finished product. Whereas, as you mentioned, I would have thought this is, a month, 2 months, whatever out there. So, am I missing anything? Any details you want to bring up that differentiates Wove from anybody else who's offering these types of products?
I think the core differentiator for us is that replica ring experience, because it does allow you to buy with full confidence the ring that you want, ensuring that it is perfect, that it is exactly what your partner wants to wear. And then that replica ring kind of becoming your travel ring or your honeymoon ring after you buy the final one from us. So that largely plays into our experience. But really, we are the only company that exists that provides a customizable replica ring as a way to navigate the buying experience.
I think that's funny what you just said, because you didn't bring that up. It's like, hey, you get to keep the replica, and you can use that when you're in more of if we're going to go whitewater rafting, then you better wear the replica.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. I mean, my wife has smashed her replica ring, hiking, traveling. She's pretty rough on her jewelry. So I think she wears her replica ring like 90% of the time. But yeah, it's something that people don't think about until, you accidentally snag a prong on your beautiful engagement ring and you lose your center diamond. I mean, I've heard lots of horror stories of that happening. And yeah, people love the replica ring.
So let me pose another question. So you got this process. It's really awesome. But you have somebody who's detail-oriented, picky, OCD, finicky, whatever you want to say. But they want to go through like 10 replica rings before they're going to make a decision. That's kind of destroys your model, doesn't it?
Well, we only offer one replica ring per couple. So what I would say is we actually, it is funny. I think engineers or people that have a design-oriented mindset are perfect for our process because they get to see their design come to life in front of them, unlike any other jewelry buying process that exists. So we work with tons of engineers that buy their rings from us. And I would add that, the iteration phase on the ring happens at the sketch phase and not the replica phase. We essentially have designers that will work with our clients to design a ring as many times as they like, doing realistic technical sketches. And then we bring those sketches into computer-aided design. So the iteration phase certainly happens before the replica. The replica is kind of like that final check before pulling the trigger on the final ring.
And what are the biggest problems you have on the flip side? So, you've done the replica. They're like, oh, that's fabulous. I want it. They get the ring. What are the issues that come up, 3 months later, 3 years later, whatever?
So, well, we haven't been around as long enough to be 3 years later. But what I would say is typically the issues that we'll see after someone gets a replica ring is recognizing, hey, we designed this for 1.5 carats. I was envisioning something bigger. I want a 2.5 carat diamond. Or another great thing about our replica process is you get the ring and you discover, hey, I'm actually a size 7 ring size, and we built this as a size 5.5. So it does allow you to kind of figure out along the way certain things that if you clicked to buy a ring on Brilliant Earth or Blue Nile, you wouldn't know that until it's already too late. And so, that's one of the beautiful things about the replica process that I think a lot of our clients love.
So big question for you. So it sounds like you're off to a good start. Things are going well. How do you scale this marketing wise? How do you get the word out? And then how do you scale it people wise? I'm all about people and growing organizations. So how do you do those two things?
So what we're doing right now, I think there's kind of two answers to that. There's the scale of the production capacity. And then there's also scaling the demand generation through marketing. And so we pay very, very close attention to our conversion funnel. How many leads are we generating that come to the site? How many people fill out the quiz? How many people buy the replica, and how many people buy the final ring? And paying very, very close attention to the conversion rates at each step in our sales funnel. And, what we're seeing is once we get to a certain point of optimization in that sales funnel, it becomes very easy for us to understand what each dollar in equals in dollars out, as far as ad dollars to revenue produced. And so that's one aspect of it that we're continuing to grow and scale. The production aspect is really focused and centered on process. So we invested a lot really early into building out a dynamic, beautifully running CRM system that we custom built in HubSpot that allows us to do the custom production at scale, making sure that each step of the production process gets the notes that they need in order to stay true to the original design that the client intended. And so when I'm thinking about scaling, I'm thinking about both of those areas and how we do it in a way that allows us to not play whisper down the lane with the production of our rings, but allows us to have systems in place that allow customization to grow and to scale.
Interesting. And it seems like as far as getting the word out, you probably, I'm not recommending this, but I'm just saying it struck me that if you could get on Shark Tank and have one of them go through your process before you're actually on there, you'd probably totally wow the audience, whether you made a deal for funding or not. But it's that type of celebrity endorsement of your process that in your particular market, I would think would have a lot of legs to it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's actually, it's funny that you say that because that's how we got our earliest investors. That's how we got the branding agency that we were able to use. We got extremely fortunate to work with a branding agency called Bullish out of New York. They're a venture capital firm / branding agency, and they only work with about 10 companies a year. But they've worked with companies such as Warby Parker, Peloton, Harry's, big name companies. And the way that we were able to convince them to work with us is actually sending them a box, sending one of the partners at the firm a box of our replica rings. And they were stunned by how realistic they look and the fact that we could build them in 7 days. And then she actually went through our process. And at the end of that process was like, this is amazing. We want to work with you. And that's actually how we got our foot in the door. Yeah, it's a great point. One of the things that we are doing from a social perspective to grow is that every couple that goes through our process, we give them a branded reel, like a 30-second video reel of their ring being produced from start to finish. So they'll see the sketch, they'll see it being cast, polished, set, and it's a beautiful reel that has our Wove branding. And what we found is it's highly shareable. Not many couples have a beautiful video of their ring being custom built and it's branded Wove. So it kind of has some viral effects for us in terms of growth and grassroots marketing.
No, I love what you're doing. Once again, I do a call out to the audience. I mean, I'm not selling rings. Neither are most of the people, if not all the people that are listening. But when you think about translating this to your business, how can you do things that maximize the perception and the reality, hopefully, that you're doing something unique and valuable for people and get them to share it for you? I think that's awesome. So, Andrew, I mean, this is really fun to talk about. Actually, I do want to look at your site. I didn't do that before the show. Isn't that terrible, audience? I didn't check out his site, but I wanted to have just a real conversation. I didn't want to have come in with any bias, but actually I remarried a year and a half ago, and we were in the middle of COVID. We got married on the beach in Kihei, Maui, via Zoom with some friends of ours who are ministers, and it was awesome. But we didn't spend a lot on rings. And one of these days we're going to, look at rings again. And I'm definitely going to check out your site because I'm not that picky, but my wife does have great taste. So it would be good timing for us. But any closing thoughts for fellow entrepreneurs out there? And of course, where can they go to learn more about you and what you're doing in your company?
So one of the biggest things that I've learned is listening to your consumers, really understanding the consumer journey and where their pain points are at, and then providing a solution to each of their pain points and building a journey that they actually want to be on. Initially we really thought we understood what we were building was what people wanted. And after testing our early assumptions and hypotheses, we discovered that people actually didn't want what we were building and they had different pain points than we originally imagined. So I think having the flexibility to adapt and build a different product is something that's really important for an entrepreneur to be successful. But yeah, David, thank you so much. Really appreciate being on the show. If people are interested in checking us out, we're at wovemade.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. But yeah, it was an honor to be on the show, David. Thank you so much.
Hey, I really enjoyed it, Andrew. I'm going to tell my wife about it. She can check it out, I'm sure. So I wish you guys the best. Sounds like you're on a great journey. And I love what you're talking about, that, you're just adapting and evolving and moving it forward. And I hope you guys just blow the doors off things.
Awesome. Thanks so much, David.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you like the episode with Andrew, please subscribe. Leave us a comment. Leave us feedback, a rating. We'd love to hear from you. Also, remember our sponsor, Habitly.com. You just learned about great wedding rings where you're committing to someone else. How about learning how to behave better with that special person? So, Habitly.com. Check it out. First 7 days free. And stay tuned. More great guests coming. Isn't this fabulous? Bye for now.